Okay, I'm laughing at myself because this is like the fourth take. Welcome to the Motivational Institute, where passion and purpose will always find you. My name is Stacy. Please subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. Let's get right into it. So, Jarrell bought me this t-shirt the other day for Black History Month. These are all Black women who contributed in some way, shape, or form to the freedoms that we have and rights that we have today. So I like to go over and just kind of give an overview of what contributions these women made. So I knew some, but I didn't know all. All right, so the first one here up top is Ida Wells. She was born in 1962 in Mississippi. She was a journalist, abolitionist, feminist, and she started the anti-lynching crusade in the 1890s, which was huge. One of her famous quotes is, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them." So the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. And if you do any other research, you'll see what types of changes came about from that anti-lynching crusade. This was early on in the 1890s. And that's Ida Wells. First one here up top. Second one, which many of you probably know, common household name, right? Maya Angelou. She was born in 1928 in St. Louis. She was a writer, a poet, a civil rights activist, and this was a crazy fact that I was like blown away by, but not surprised. She has more than 50 honorary degrees. So if you don't know what an honorary degree is, just go ahead and look it up. But she has more than 50, and that is unheard of. You've seen her presence during the inauguration and during lots of different presidential, campaigns and things of that nature. So she actually wrote a book, I believe it's called Why the Caged Bird Sings. And so that was a reflection of her upbringing and, what she went through. She's gone through so many things, so many different forms of type of abuse and neglect, physical, mental, etc. And that memoir was just kind of like a reflection of what her past was like. So one of the famous quotes that she said, and I have written down here, and it's funny because I say this one all the time and I didn't know it was from Maya Angelou. So she basically said, "People will forget what you said, and people will also forget what you did. But people never, ever forget how you made them feel." So if you hear that quote, at least now you know where it came from. Where it came from. All right, the next one here on the list is Fannie Lou. Fannie Lou was born in 1917, or a little bit over 100 years ago, in Mississippi. Now, Fannie Lou was famous for voting, so fighting for women's rights and when it came to voting, and she was also an activist. In 1964, she actually ran for Congress. Ooh, in the 60s? Yeah, so we don't even have to talk about what that was probably like, but shout out to Fannie Lou for that. In 1963, she was actually arrested for her involvement in pushing women's rights and activating and becoming an activist. She was beaten so badly in jail that she actually had permanent kidney failure. But she kept fighting. She set up another organization. And shout out to all the entrepreneurs and individuals of color. I don't want to say just African American, but people of color, because Fannie Lou was pivotal in ensuring that there was an increase of business opportunities for all minorities. And in 1971, she actually established a national women's political caucus. Things that make you go, okay, Fannie Lou, I see you. All right, next on the list, Sojourner Truth. She was born in way back, 1797 in New York. Hey, New York, represent that. She was a women's rights activist. She was actually born into slavery, and she escaped slavery. And when she escaped, she actually had an infant daughter with her. She was super, super passionate about prison reform. Shout out Sojourner. That's maybe where I get it from. Maybe I'm channeling my inner Sojourner truth, but she knew that there needed to be changes when it came to prison reform. So she fought for those rights for prisoners. One of the major projects that she was involved with, and this is great, is that she fought to secure land grants from the federal government for former slaves, because she knew that if those slaves had land, had property, so if you haven't gotten property, look into that. She knew that they would be more self-sufficient and that this would lead to overall freedom. And unfortunately, she died 40 years before women actually had a right to vote. So she did that foundational work before, there was even a glimpse of opportunities for women. But she spearheaded a lot of those movements. So that is Sojourner Truth. And the last one, y'all already know, Harriet. Okay, I skipped Harriet, but I wanted to save her for last for a lot of reasons. Wow. And I tried to do quick research, and I wish I would have found some better facts, but I'm going to get into just my thoughts at the end of this. But let me give you her overview. So Harriet Tubman, born into slavery in 1820, she actually received she got a head injury as a young child, maybe 6 or 7 years old. She suffered from a cracked skull. So one of the slave owners was actually trying to stop another slave from running, and he threw a heavy weight at that slave, and the weight actually hit Harriet Tubman in the head and cracked her skull. So that was a very serious head injury that she suffered, and as a result of that, during her entire life, she had multiple seizures and what was it that she said? Narcolepsy. There were some other issues, major issues that she had as far as brain trauma. But she fought through that. I don't know how, but we need to all channel our inner Harriet. Like, really? She had a cracked skull. So she acquired the name Moses very, very early on. And many of you probably know why, because she led hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of slaves to freedom through the Underground Railroad. She was illiterate, so Harriet Tubman could not read or write, but just the power of will. Harriet Tubman could not read or write, but you know how she communicated? Through songs, spiritual songs, and she spoke in code through those songs. So she sent messages to former slaves through her music. Wow. And so she also said, and I believe, I don't want to mess up this quote, but she said when it came to the Underground Railroad that her train never went off the track and she never lost a slave. And she actually never did. After I did more research, I found out that, many of these slaves had young children and even infants and babies. And I don't know what it's like for you to try to keep a child quiet just for 20 minutes while you're on the phone. Imagine trying to keep all those children quiet during transitioning through the Underground Railroad. I don't know what that was like. But what I did read up on was that they used certain types of plants and certain types of natural aids to give to children to calm them and to keep them quiet. And some of them even actually had narcotics in them at that time. But when you think about it, I mean, you're talking about between life and death, right? If you get caught, everybody's dead. So they used what they could to calm the children and to keep the crying down. That's amazing. But the research that I really was trying to look for was that, Harriet Tubman was free when she was she escaped when she was maybe 15 or 16. She actually went back to save her cousin who was about to be sold. And so when she discovered what was happening to many other slaves, and this was right before the Civil War, she decided and made it her mission to free as many of them as she possibly could. And I want to say that bridge was from Canada. I don't know how far it was. You could do the research, but I know it was from Canada all the way down, like through the South. So just think, walking, traveling, hiding, the types of conditions that they had to live in, going back and forth. I'm sure people were tired. I'm sure people were ill. And just the trauma that could come behind constantly being in fear, of being caught. And so I channeled my inner Harriet today because I just said, we constantly have all these excuses as to why we can't do things and what's stopping us. But she made up in her mind that it was not going to be over until she won. And until, it wasn't enough for her to set herself free, but she went back. She walked back. Eric Thomas had mentioned this in one of his videos when he was talking to some youth. And he said, we're so quick to easily give up on things that are difficult for us. But, thank God the slaves didn't give up. We still be, slaves today, somewhere in the Middle Passage. So shout out to E.T. on that. I love that video. But I think about that a lot. But these are women who fought for rights, fought for what they believed and what they were passionate about. And hopefully that just sheds a little light and encourages many of you, even if you are not a woman of color, even if you're not a woman, you don't have to be, but what do you really believe in, and where do you get that source and that drive from? I like to channel my inner ancestors and individuals who I know paved the way for me, because if it was not for them, we wouldn't be here today. If it was not for them, we wouldn't be able to go to school. We definitely wouldn't be able to vote. You can see that clearly right here. And just a lot of freedoms and things. So I am definitely grateful for everyone who contributed in those ways. And there's so many more, but I just got inspired by this t-shirt because I was like, I can't wear this t-shirt. And then somebody asked me, who is Ida Wells? Because that's what they're going to ask me. Oh, who is Sojourner Truth? What did she do? Or Dallas or Savannah, they're going to ask me. So now Anyways, it was a little longer today, but that's all right. Messages. Have a blessed and beautiful day, and I'll see you soon.